They got something to prove, huh? Yeah, we all we got. And we keeping it high. Miss Mike on the mic next to Sheeta Rob. Oh, really having fun. Ain't no holding our tongue. Go get us on the team. That we getting it done.
Shout out
Yeah,
to
we getting it done. Shout out to Jamaica, girl. You number one. Huh?
Welcome to another episode of A Gam Minute podcast. Today is Thursday, April the 22nd, 2021. Today we have a very, very exciting, informative topic. We will be speaking with Mr. Brandon Randleman. He's a political activist, but I'm not going to talk too much about him. Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Randleman. I am a native of Windsor, Virginia, a graduate of Virginia State University, Trojan to the heart, where I bleed orange and blue. And I am a political activist and also work in politics on the policy side and campaign side as well. I guess at this point, it's say civil rights activists too, because it sounds like we're all out here for the long run fighting for our civil rights. So that's me. It's short and sweet and simple. I'm a man of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I'm also a Mason as well. So I'm active in social organizations and different other organizations around the community.
So you in a whole lot of
I'm in a
social
whole lot of stuff.
activities and things for the community. You do a lot of social events or whatever for the community.
Of
right?
course, yeah. And I'm a firm believer in giving back to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So everything we do is, whenever I join something, is what can we do to give back to someone, give back to the community, and help someone else, right? Help build someone else up.
Right.
The best way I always remember is as you climb the ladder of success, make sure you pull someone else behind you. So,
that's correct.
So I join different things, not just because to pad my resume, but it's to be active in the community and help someone else. Yeah.
Okay, so you're an activist.
Yes.
One of our top activists, you would say? Would you consider yourself like?
I would
up
say
there?
I'm the top. It's a bunch of us out here. We all work together, right? So I work with individuals out of Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of campaigns and get a lot of individuals elected to a higher office.
Oh, okay.
My job is we find good people and we run their campaigns and we get them elected to office. Why is that? Because if you really want to make a change, you got to have the right people in higher office, either on the local, state, and federal level.
Okay,
so we worked on campaigns from school board, mayor, city council, the state senator, the state delegate, to Congress.
Okay.
I participated in all these type of campaigns, whether it's managing, consultant, working in the field operations to get these individuals elected to higher office.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then when we have an issue, it's a phone call away to say, okay, I just received a call about this issue in your city. Let me call the mayor. Let me call the city council.
So it's basically I help you because I need you to get in this position. So when I need you, you're there.
And it's not even so much of when I need you, it's when the community needs you. Right.
Our people.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, of course. And to me, I don't, some may say that's quid pro quo. No, that's not. That's you ask the people to come out and vote for you, and they may not have the access to you that I do. So therefore, if they come to me with an issue, my job is to reach back out to you and say, hey, we ran a strong campaign. You gave these the citizens your word. So therefore, you have to answer to them, and that it's that accountability part. It's that accountability.
Right. So what led you to doing, activism or all these different social community?
I would say I started off. So when I was at Windsor, I remember I couldn't even vote for President Obama. His first term he ran, and we were out there passing out literature for him. But I would say Virginia State is where it really got started at. By Virginia State being a public school, and we had, I think at that time, we was reaching about 6,000 or 7,000 students. When I got there and I started running for student government and would eventually become the student body president for the entire university, I realized it wasn't like a student council from high school, right, where you're talking about prom and things like that. We were dealing with real issues. We were raising money for students, dealing with financial aid, dealing with housing on campus, dealing with, food and administrative services, and also having to lobby the state and federal government on behalf of our African American students there. So I realized they would come to me and say, look, I got a problem. And our team would come together and we would figure out how to fix it. And I'm like, oh, I like this, Someone has an issue, we have the tools and the resources to come together and fix it. And then that's just how it started. And just kept going from there. Started working on local campaigns and state campaigns and federal campaigns, and worked up in the General Assembly, which is the body that makes state laws that many of us often have to live our daily lives by. So that's how I got started in this activism role.
So Brandon, when you say team, how many people are on your team?
So right now, underneath my company, I own a company called MV Strategies. It's a consultant firm for government, for individuals seeking to run for higher office, but we also give advice and counsel to individuals that have been elected and now are government officials. So my firm itself, I'm the sole owner of the firm. We do a lot of subcontracting, so it just depends on what I'm being tasked with or what people have retained me for, and then that's when depends. So I work with Kim Wimbush, who does a lot of media work for us. As well, I work with the NAACP out of Portsmouth, NAACP out of Windsor. I worked for City Council woman Sabrina Wooten out of Virginia Beach. I worked for school board candidates in Portsmouth, and done some work with Mayor Kenny Alexander out of Norfolk. So it just really depends. When they call me, it depends on what they're asking of me, and then that's when I get with my team and say, okay, is it field operations? I have this, this individual I can count on. And we just do a lot of subcontracting work. And the thing is, what I love is a lot of people I work with are African Americans, and they own their own business in their own right. So it's a lot of young African Americans. We all own our own consulting firms, and then we just all utilize each other. I remember Kim. She was working with now former NFL player, now Chesapeake City Councilman Don Carey out of Chesapeake. And he was looking for some campaign consulting work. She was doing his media. She calls me and say, "Hey, Brandon, look." She tells Don, he's a good guy. Brandon, come on board with us, and so that's what I did. So it's just really like a word of mouth thing. You do good at you're good at what you do, and people go out there and speak highly of you, and that's how you get the next gig.
Okay, now I know you mentioned you work alongside of NAACP, so you're not a member?
I am, yeah, but I'm a member of the Suffolk chapter.
Okay.
I am a member of the Suffolk chapter, but if there's an issue elsewhere, to me it's like we're all brothers and sisters, right? And it's all about the numbers. It's not sometimes about being in the spotlight or in the microphone. It's about when my brothers and sisters in Portsmouth are going through something like they did in the summertime with the whole statue thing, and some of them were arrested and had those crazy charges brought against them over a statue. It's like, okay, I need to be out there to support them. I don't necessarily need to be on the bullhorn or in the front spotlight, but we need to show them that they have that public support. So, okay, we're going to get in our cars and we're going to Portsmouth. We're going to Windsor. And then at times, yes, it is, they say, Brandon, can you come and serve as our spokesperson or something of that nature? So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Brandon, I understand, you're a guy that wears many hats. However, what brings you here today?
So today we are here to talk about the now national, if not international, story that happened in a little small town called Windsor, Virginia, with Army Lieutenant Caron Nazario, in which he was stopped by police on December the 5th of 2020, and a simple stop over tinted windows and a license plates being in a different location on his car turned out where guns were drawn. He was taunted by outrageous statements by the police. He was pepper sprayed, and they physically detained him. Let me repeat this.
Okay.
A simple stop over a tinted window and a license plates in a different location. I won't say the wrong location. In a different location on the vehicle resulted in guns being drawn, pepper spray, and physical detainment. That's a lot. For a simple stop.
That is a lot.
I think we probably all got. I got tinted windows.
Yeah.
I got a little sports car. And I got nice tinted windows. I like my tint. I like my sound. Okay.
Right.
The typical black person, we like our tint and we like our sound, right? Right. So I could roll up on the state capitol and got my music bumping. It might be Biggie Smalls, or it might be Donnie McClurkin, but we bumping, right?
Right.
So, So and that's the way it started. It really started from tinted windows and the license plates. And let's, before we get into the license plates, just remember at the time we were still in COVID, and the governor had signed executive orders stating extending periods for people to get their license and things straight when it came down to DMV license plates and things of that nature.
Right.
Why is that? Because we were in COVID and the DMVs were not open. So,
Exactly.
and we'll get into that in a second when we talk about training of officers, because they should have known that.
They should know that.
Leading up to the stop. Yeah.
They weren't supposed to really stop for any traffic violations during that time,
Something.
right?
Well, and here's the thing: they could stop. If someone's speeding, if they
Right.
think someone
Something
is doing something
dangerous.
dangerous. But
Tinted windows and your license plates being in a different location. Now, okay, you're gonna have to fill me in
Yes.
on a lot of it because I just know a little bit. I couldn't quite get it. Now, I know it's supposed to be at night,
was.
so they stopped him for tinted windows. Was his windows that dark that they was able to tell, like, hey, your tint is super dark, and it was at night? Because I know at one point he was supposed to have been driving till he got to a lit area, so that kind of let me know that it was pretty dark. Then,
it was.
you
So
know,
it was the winter time.
460 is
It's
country.
460 is the 460 is the country. There's no other way of putting
Right.
it. It is the winter time, and at around the 6 o'clock hour, I want to
Okay.
say, the sun is fell. It's dark now, and you're coming through Route 460 now. I'm familiar with 460 because I went to Virginia State. So for 4 years, I drove back and forth up that highway. So I remember just having little landmarks in the back of my head, knowing where I can stop at a certain time where I feel safe at, right? Where if I need to get some gas or something of that nature. So in Windsor, most people know you have the BP. The Dairy Queen is really that. If nobody knows anything about Windsor, they know the Dairy Queen, right? So of course, if he would have kept going towards the Dairy Queen, I guess they would have had the army out there after him. So, they would have had the military out there, the feds or whomever. So, in this case, the cops flash their lights at him, and he slows down instantly. He's already going below the speed limit, so they're not stopping him for speed.
Right.
And so they're trying to use this notion that, we're a speed trap. Well, in this case, he wasn't stopped for speed. So why else was he stopped? Well, we had a press conference yesterday, and it's because it's racial bias. It's racially biased. You see a SUV coming through the town of Windsor with tinted windows. We know what time it is, right? Let's not cut any corners and act like it's not some racial implicit bias there. He slows down, and the next well-lit area is, of course, where this infamous stop happened at the BP. He's slow. Now, Officer Crocker, who has not been fired yet. Let me make this very clear. There were 2 officers involved.
Wow.
Officer Crocker, who is yet to be fired, initiated the stop. He was the one who initiated all of this. And the first thing he puts over the radio is a felony eluding stop, meaning that this man was eluding the police. He later writes in his report, oh yeah, by the way, he was going below the speed limit. So how do you call in a felony eluding and then later on write in your report that he was going below the speed limit? It's because of that call that caused everything to really start to erupt the way it did.
Right, because I was gonna say, could it have been by him saying that in his call, it kind of like put the other people listening on an alert. So if something should happen, they can say, well, he did call in that this was going to be, could potentially be a hostile situation. So if he had to shoot or something took place other than.
You are so correct. You should be very mindful what you call in as a cop, right? And if you have the proper training, you should know that.
Right.
You should never say this is a felony eluding stop when you know the man was going slow. And then you later on admit that 80% of minorities that come through there that they have stopped in the past often slow down and go to well-lit areas. So this is not an uncommon practice. The cops knew that this is what most minorities do when they flashing, and I think not even just minorities. I mean, I have some white friends that reach out to me and say, in Windsor, when I come through there, if the cops stop me, I pull off to a well-lit area. And so he calls in. So once they pull over to the BP, and then now you have Officer Gutierrez. Everyone pronounces his name a little differently, but this is the other officer involved. They instantly get out their car and they draw their guns. Right, that's a red flag right there, right? So I stopped somebody for tinted windows and a license plates, and now I have a gun drawn on me.
Right, but could it have been because of the call that he made initially?
And that has been our argument with why Officer Crocker should be off the force. That's not, because had he not initiated that type of call, this probably would not have started. And they tried to say, well, Officer Crocker, he didn't use the taunting language like the other officer did. You know, there were things said, well, when the young man said, I'm scared to get out of the car, he said, you should be. That was not Officer Crocker.
Okay, so that was a whole different officer that
was,
said
it was two of them. That was the one they fired.
See? Okay, see, I thought it was one and the same. The
it was two. Yeah, it was two
and
of
the
them.
one that said it.
Yeah, so so Officer Crocker just stood by idly. But Desmond Tutu said it the best. If you are silent during times of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. So if you sit there during times of injustice, you're oppressing the situation just like the other person.
And then especially since you're the one that initiated that bad call.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Okay, we have.
Yes, yeah. And so then, the young man instantly puts his hands out the window. He's like, what are you stopping me for? They're not telling him what he's stopping him for. They're saying, get out the car. But they're yelling conflicting statements. One is saying, put your hands out the window. The other one is saying, get out your car. Well, how can I get out my car if you're telling me to have my hands out the window?
Right, how you going to open the door?
How am I supposed to open the door? So at this point, he goes on to say, well, I'm scared to get out the car. You have two guns drawn on me.
Right.
You're screaming and yelling. You're both giving me conflicting instructions or commands. And then when I start saying that I'm scared to get out of the car, what am I being stopped for? The other officer then says, Officer Gutierrez says, you should be. And you getting ready to ride the lightning, son.
Right. See, and that right there to me all sound like the initial call. It sound like they kind of conspired with the setup. Like that kind of go with the whole thing. Like, okay, I don't know. It's like what I'm trying to say. It just seemed like a big setup. That's all I can say. It just seemed
I don't know if it was a setup. I don't know if it was necessarily a setup or is it a common practice coming down? Is it a common practice where there's no accountability in the town of Windsor? And so therefore this is what they do. And they have always gotten away with it. And let's keep in mind, this happened December 5th. We knew nothing about it. I think it went viral around April the 9th or that Friday. Yep. Yep. So.
Okay, I understand that, but after looking at the video, could it possibly be that Crocker just called in the wrong call when he was saying felony eluding? Because the guy did proceed for 1.5 miles, correct?
No. So he proceeded, I think, less than 1.5 miles. No, you can't say he called in the wrong call because a felony eluding is someone speeding up,
right,
and putting them through a high-speed chase.
Exactly.
If someone is slowing down, he's already admitted that Officer Crocker was never going above the speed limit. He was never going above 35 miles per hour.
Right.
Correct.
He then later admits that he slowed down below the 35 miles per hour mark.
Right.
So how can you say that's the wrong call?
Right.
At this point, you're just calling in whatever you want to call in, and that's questionable. It goes back to your training, right? It goes back to, is this a common practice where the police in Windsor do what they want to do?
Like I said, a setup.
And they do what they want to do, and then it just goes it's brushed underneath the rug.
Right.
I believe that, and I understand that, but I'm just trying to look at it from another side as well. But looking at the video again, Crocker, the way he handled himself as if he was a rookie.
Right. So let me. I'm so glad someone asked that question. Let me ask you a question, and let me answer it this way. If your loved one had to go into a heart surgery, and the heart surgeon just got out of medical school, when they come out of the surgery room and they come back and say, "I'm sorry, I just got out of medical school, but I lost your loved one," is that an excuse?
Not
There's
at
no
all.
excuse. So why do we hold the cops to a different standard, right? If you felt like you were not well trained or well equipped, then you shouldn't go out in the field, right? Because the brain surgeon, the heart surgeon doesn't get another chance, right?
No,
the
they
lawyer doesn't get another chance, right? When he goes in that courtroom, he has to give it his all. Those prosecutors that prosecuted Derek Chauvin, they had one chance. They had one shot.
Right.
That's it.
That's right.
They couldn't come back out to the world and say, well, we just started
we just
got out of law school, and so can we do it all over again, y'all? And y'all bear with us? No, because there's a such thing as double jeopardy, right? There's double jeopardy in the legal system. There's malpractice lawsuits on the medical side, but with cops is, well, they were just trained. And I can't accept that.
No, I don't think it's acceptable either.
That's not acceptable because if you feel like you're not well trained, if I'm not well versed in something, I read, I write, I'll send someone else, right? I'm not gonna go out here and talk about science and the brain and the heart when I know nothing about it, right? I'm gonna find somebody else and say, bring them on the podcast and let's talk about that way, So because I can't tell you about the heart and the brain, So I just think that's unacceptable.
Brandon, I definitely understand you, but again, looking back at the video, I felt as though that Crocker, the way that he handled it, it showed a lack of experience. So that's where the other one who was like belligerent, I felt as though he's a more veteran. He should have handled it a little better than the way that he did it, because. And going back to listen to what you were saying, yes, they were giving him different commands at different times, so he didn't know which way to move, right? But I felt as though if Gutierrez or whatever his name is, he should have taken over and really showed some leadership to the younger one and let him know, how to handle that.
Well, pretty much he did, didn't he? He just showed him the wrong way, the Windsor way.
He showed him the wrong way. He showed him the Windsor way. You're right about that. And here's the thing. Officer Crocker was on a patrol duty by himself. So again, it's like, how do you keep saying, well, the individual is not experienced? Well, they sent him out on patrol duty by himself. They were not in the same car together. He was, so therefore the police chief, and we're going to get to him in a second, as a leader, evidently he felt comfortable enough that
somebody signed off on him.
That he can come out himself and patrol the streets of Windsor.
Correct.
That includes anything. That includes that, okay, if I stop someone and someone pulls a gun out on me, if I go into a domestic situation, I think this goes back to the leadership of the chief, right? If someone signed off on Officer Crocker and they're properly monitoring him and they're making sure that he is staying within the standards of police code standards of Windsor, then you can't use that as an excuse of, well, he was just trained. Because again, I think it's this common thing of we give police officers this thing of, well, they just got it in the field, but nobody else gets that chance, gets that second chance.
And this is my issue too. If the first officer is the one that made the call, right? Why did he stand back and not say anything else and let the other officer come up? So even if he was a rookie, then maybe he should have called in for backup initially instead of making a call. Like, called in for backup and say, hey, I'm not sure what to do. Right. This guy, he has tinted windows. I stopped him, but he's still going. No, he's not speeding, but he's still going.
Right. And
can someone come help me stop him?
Right. And when all this is occurring, he sits back with a little smirk on his face. Let's look closely at the video. Officer Crocker is sitting back with just a little smirk on his face and just really idly just sitting there. And he kind of he jumps in every now and then with different instructions.
Like he's proud of the other guy and what he's saying.
He's
like he's like,
he's just sitting there, And my thing is, if you just sitting there. See, remember, the other 3 cops that are being charged in the George Floyd murder is because they did exactly what Officer Crocker did. Yeah. Now the prosecutors in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the police chief in Minneapolis have said, no, that's wrong. You don't. And remember, those 3 cops just got out in the force as well. But guess what? They've been charged with George Floyd's death as well. So again,
that's right.
You have these different practices all over America. Right. So in Minneapolis, Minnesota, we're going to hold those 3 cops accountable. But in Windsor, Virginia, we're not going to hold Officer Crocker accountable. And so there has to be some type of common practice there.
Right.
And that's true.
So why do you think one officer, because you did say one officer was fired,
correct,
and the other one wasn't?
Well, the police chief made it clear that the only reason he fired the other Officer Gutierrez because the tape went viral. This is what the police chief came out at a national press conference and said. Not because of what they did to this young black man in uniform. It was because the tape went viral. Remember, in December, they opened up an investigation. They concluded the investigation at the end of January. He, quote unquote, disciplined both officers, but they both stayed in their jobs. And they had to let one go. And he let one go the Sunday after the tape went viral. He made it clear that's the only reason
he only did pretty much put a Band-Aid over a deep cut. Right. So he's like, okay, since it went viral and everyone's seeing it, I have to let you go. And that's why if no one saw it, he wouldn't have let him go.
That's why at that point we've lost confidence in the leadership of the police chief.
Right.
And anybody else that's going to
But both of them had on body cameras, right?
They both had body camera footage on, yeah.
And body cameras, did they have video on them as well?
Yeah, so the great thing about it is this was videoed from almost 3 different angles because Lieutenant Nazario instantly pressed play on his cell phone, and then both officers had body camera footage as well. So it was 3 different angles in which it occurred on. And then keep in mind, Officer Crocker, Daniel Crocker, he participated in the physical detainment of Caron. So after they pepper sprayed him with whatever they were using, and the young man is basically blinded at the moment. They didn't get him out the car and knock him on his knees.
Hold on. Sorry to interrupt, but go back to the pepper spray part. Why? Go to the beginning of that part. Why did they pepper spray him?
So they went from the guns to, as they started going, when the young man wouldn't get out the car because they were giving conflicting commands, and he continued to say, what am I being stopped for? You need to get out the car. You need to get out the car. He says, I'm scared to get out of the car. Then that's when they get closer to the car and they try to open up the door. And he's like, wait a minute. Like, I don't know what's going on. One moment you got guns drawn out. One moment you tell me to get out the car. Next moment you tell me to keep my car. It's just so many different things. So he's scared. And then you're also telling me you should be scared. And you're getting ready to ride the lightning, son, right? And so it's one of those things. So that's when it escalated to the pepper spray, in which Officer Gutierrez pepper sprayed.
That's the second officer.
That's the second officer. Pepper
So he
sprayed.
did everything.
He did it well, no, because this is what a lot of people don't often see or know. All of a sudden, once they get Lieutenant Nazario out of the vehicle, and they both officers have participated in the physical detainment of him. Why do you blinded this man? Why do you need to physically get him on the ground as if he's fighting you all? And they handcuffed him. Well, then Officer Crocker takes it upon himself to illegally get in this man's car and look for a gun. He finds a gun after Nazario tells him, yeah, I have a gun, I'm in the Army, right?
Right.
He runs the serial number on him. Why would he run the serial number on a black man?
He's doing all of that.
Gun. He runs this is what a lot of people don't know. This is Officer Crocker that's still in the force. Runs the serial number on the gun, and then once he realizes that the gun isn't stolen and is legit, he puts it back in the car. Why did he go in that man's car and in the first place? That had nothing to do with the traffic stop.
So he is in the Army and he's fully uniformed? Did he
Fully
have his uniform?
had his uniform, and he lets it be known he's, I'm coming back from duty. I'm in the military, and they're like, I'm a veteran too. It was almost, I won't say they said it, but it was almost like, so what?
It just seemed like it's just a whole lot with this story. It's like it's a whole lot, and then it's like a lot of stuff not really making sense.
Right.
Because it's like you start someone up, you stop them based on a tent, then you go on to a whole lot of other stuff that had nothing to do with the
And it
tent.
sounds like he was pretty much cooperating.
He was trying to.
He was trying to, but he was getting so confused.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of messed up. But now, how true is it that the police chief was actually called to the scene?
My understanding was the police chief was called to the scene, and once the police chief got there, that's where things get a little murky at, and we have not got some clarity on what the police chief did. My understanding of reading it was, at this point, I don't know if the police chief was trying to give the two officers guidance on what's the next steps to take with this, but my understanding is the police chief was called to the scene. So then it just takes us back to Officer Crocker and the police chief still being on the force, right? The police chief's called to the scene. Now, as a police chief, how often is police chief called to a scene of a basic traffic stop?
That's supposed to be.
That's supposed to be a basic traffic stop. So clearly, the two officers know they've done something that's been out of the ordinary to the point they need to call the chief to come down here. And the chief does arrive, in my understanding. And then things are a little murky with what happens when the chief is on the scene. Yes, but my understanding is the chief did arrive. I won't say I definitively know that, but it has been my understanding that the chief arrived on the scene.
Now, is there any chance that the officer, what's his name? The lieutenant?
Lieutenant Nazario, Caron Nazario.
Is there any chance that within all of this, everything taking place, that he could have possibly had did something, wrong that could have caused it?
I don't think so. They've tried to say, Lieutenant Nazario could have done this or could have done this differently. But the thing is, he's a black man in a small white town. Yeah. And this is what I need all my white counterparts, my brothers and my sisters, the allies out here that are white, that I have so many white friends that I love dearly, right? But I need them to understand, until you walk a day in a black man's shoes, you gotta understand that a cop coming to a black man's car in this type of environment we're in now, where, let's keep in mind, first of all, Lieutenant Nazario has some kinship to Eric Garner's family. Remember Eric Garner in New York?
Oh, wow.
Who died outside of the, because Lieutenant Nazario is from New York, died outside of the Quickie Mart for some cigarettes.
Correct.
So we've been killed for less, right?
Right.
We've been killed because of cigarettes. We've been killed over a $20 bill.
Right.
We've been killed over with Trayvon Martin when he was with cops, but over Skittles and a drink, just in going to. So we've been killed for so much less. So it's like when I hear that, and I appreciate somebody saying, "Well, could he done something?" He's a black man in a time like this. No, I'm scared. I'm scared. I mean, even the other night after me out here fighting social justice and everything, I was in Richmond the other night, and I left from the Richmond area late, and I'm driving down 460 like this, like, because it's like, I'm still a black man. I don't care how much activism I got. And I think I think any activist can say, whether you're Reverend Al Sharpton, whether you're Tamika Mallory, whether you're Brandon Randleman, whether you're Kim Wimbush, whomever you are, we are still black.
That's right.
And we know that no matter how much fame, no matter how much fortune, no matter how many names you got, who knows us, we still black. And our experiences are going to be different across the board. But lately, they've been a whole lot different with when it comes down to cops.
Right. Now, do you think that they really knew that he was black coming down in the tinted windows at night in Windsor? Because that's kind of like another thing too. But maybe they
Stereotype.
didn't know.
Right. And so I think, it could be, right, it could be.
So they were based on the car.
It could be a stereotype. I can't say that they didn't know. Of course, I don't think they knew, and I can't say this, right? I can't speak on their behalf saying whether or not they knew he was black or not because the windows were tinted, so I don't know if they could see it. But we know that most African Americans, as I said at the start, we got tinted windows, we have the larger SUVs, we have rims, or we have the low sports cars. In my case, I got a low sports car. Somebody else may have an SUV, may have the Escalades, the Yukons, the Suburbans. That's our thing, right? And people have been policing long enough. If you police long enough, you know that's the thing that's coming through there. So that's why now we're getting ready to jump into whether there is a racial implicit bias down Route 460.
Very much so.
From Windsor all the way up to Petersburg when it comes down to stops.
Oh yeah, because I didn't got plenty of tickets going up and down.
Now, my issue is, a lot of the things that do happen. Yes, we do have the fortunate thing now of body cams, but what is it going to take for them to stop? It's like, to me, it's like, they hop out the car and they have their body cams on. I don't know whether they forget or they feel as though that nothing is going to happen to them. What is it going to take?
Right. And that's true, because what you saying, both of them had a body cam, then the other cop recorded on their phone and they still said what they said.
I sat in a meeting yesterday with the mayor and the town manager of Windsor, and I walked out of that meeting after 2 hours and I said, do they really get it? I think for a lot of them, it just goes over their head. It's like
they don't care.
When I talked to a friend last night about that, and I asked that same thing, and my friend said, Brandon, do they really care?
Right.
Do they really care? And when I say that, and I mean those in leadership, those in the police, do they really care enough about this situation or African Americans? It really leads me to wonder that. I'm not saying they do or don't, but it really leads me to question that, because you're right. It's like they know the video cameras on, and they still do this. It's almost like this superiority there.
Right, like, I can do this, I can get away.
Because I can get away with it, right? It's a lot of these small town cops. And here's the thing: we know that clearly there is some situations going on in Windsor that got away with it. Let me explain this to you. They released a statement saying that after this incident in January, the police chief says, we implemented new policies and procedures, and we disciplined the 2 officers. We immediately requested that they provide to us these new policies they implemented. We have yet to receive them. When we spoke with the town manager and the mayor on yesterday, the town manager and the mayor said they still haven't received the new policies and procedures.
Because they haven't came up with them yet.
Police chief, so that lets us know the police chief just said anything because the national media was down his throat. Because if the town manager hasn't received them, the NAACP hasn't received them, and the mayor hasn't received them, that lets us know the police chief just said anything, and he never planned on really implementing policies and changes. If he knew in January there was a situation after this stop, everything he's presenting now that he's trying to change, why didn't he bring that up in January?
So the police chief is trying to protect the officer.
That is my opinion.
And you know,
But
these little small towns,
tried to make it seem like he fired the other officer as
as a,
You know.
I guess, a coping mechanism for us African Americans in the
Right.
nation.
So I found one, but I didn't find the other one. But it sounds like the one that he didn't find did the most damage.
To me, when it came down to the initiation of it. Now,
Right.
when it came down to the pepper spray and the taunting language, like that was Officer
The one that he got rid of.
Yeah, that was him. But when it came down to Officer Crocker, I just don't understand why he's not gone. I've explained to you all he's initiated, right? I've explained to you Officer Crocker went in this man's car and ran a serial on his gun.
Exactly.
Right.
Officer Crocker participated in a physical detainment. So Officer Crocker did his part that night. He should be gone as well.
So y'all don't think the police chief should be
Oh,
gone?
the police chief.
Yeah.
We called for
Should
the
be gone
resignation.
with it.
Let me be clear. Yesterday, when we met with the mayor and the town manager, the police chief decided to show up to this meeting. I immediately looked the police chief in his eyes and said, "We have called for your resignation. I don't know if you want to tender your resignation today, but we are asking that you please excuse yourself from this meeting."
Oh,
What do
okay.
you
Oh,
say?
wow.
They then stepped out, had a brief conversation, and then the mayor and the town manager came back in and said they still supported the police chief, but for the sake of this meeting, we were going to ask him to leave, and he left our meeting because we have nothing to say to him. We want to speak to his superiors.
That's fine.
Right.
That's actually crazy, though. But you, when you sit back and look at the whole puzzle, the police chief is leading by example. Like what he's standing for, he's allowing his officers to do the same thing. So, what can we do besides asking him to? Is there a way or a step that we can?
So yeah, in the coming days and hours, I think I said this yesterday in yesterday's press conference, or someone we spoke to. In the coming hours, we are going to do a massive public pressure campaign so that the town can understand that not only is the town of Windsor looking, the Commonwealth of Virginia is looking, and the nation is looking. And we as African Americans are not going to stand by quietly, because what happens to the next Caron going down Route 460?
Right.
That's
what
right.
happens when it's your son or daughter or your niece or your nephew and they get stopped and this time they get shot?
Yep.
And clearly, they need to rein in how they handle situations, and they need to understand how to de-escalate something instead of automatically escalating something. Remember, the police chief said that with a little bit more training, Officer Crocker would be great for the community. That's what the police chief. The police chief also said that Lieutenant Nazario deserves no apology from his.
Wow.
This is the police
Wait a
chief said
minute.
this on national TV in a live press conference.
What?
Police
Ignorance.
Police Chief
Ignorance.
Riddle of Windsor, Virginia. This is the man that's still over the department that do a town that many African Americans go through when they're headed up to Richmond. This man said Lieutenant Nazario deserves no apology. He said that with a little bit more training, Officer Crocker would be great for the community. And he said, I only fired the other officer because the video went viral. This is the police chief
And he said that
on national TV.
national TV, but yet the mayor and the city manager
they
still
stand by-
said that they stand by him. But
Yes.
maybe their jobs need to be looked into as well.
Right, correct. So the
Because
mayor.
their jobs need to be vacant too.
Correct. So, and the town manager answers to the town council and the mayor, and so the town council and the mayor could ask for the resignation of the town manager. They could, and people have come to me. We're trying to give the town manager the benefit of the doubt. We're hoping that in the coming days he'll do the right thing and ask the police chief to step down. After meeting with the town manager yesterday, he looked at me with a blank look half of the meeting. So therefore, I don't know if he's going to do it.
Like
or
he
not.
won't really listen or like he's
Like it
confused.
just went over their head.
So is the governor involved?
Yes, so with that said, it's like so many different little pieces. So the governor signed an executive order to have the state police come in and investigate the entire matter. So everything we just kind of discussed, right? From start to finish. Congressman Bobby Scott wrote a letter to the Department of Justice asking that on the federal level to make sure that there was no constitutional rights violated on the federal level, asking the Department of Justice, which is Joe Biden's White House Department of Justice, to come in and look at the matter. And we also found out that the FBI is looking into the matter as well.
Okay.
As they should.
Yeah, and so the next step is we want to make sure that on the state level, if these officers committed any criminal actions, right, that once the evidence is brought forth to them, we do not trust the local prosecutor to prosecute cops that she deals with.
That's
So we want to put it in the hands of the state attorney general, which is Mark Herron.
That's right.
Because that's what they did in Minneapolis. They took it out the hands of the local prosecutor in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and they put it in the hands of the Black Attorney General Keith Ellison. So that's what we're asking for as our next step. So yes, the governor has came in. Here's the thing. again, we're going to try to give the benefit of the doubt to the state police with respect to them. And we hope that they are impartial in their investigation. But we also have to accept the fact that the state police patrol the town of Windsor with the town police. Yeah. And it is in my opinion, I don't believe no police should be policing each other. I understand the state police is from Richmond, but it's a blue wall. It's a blue wall. I don't understand why the state police is investigating another. That's why we want the Attorney General's office. We want to make sure that the Attorney General out of Richmond has a hand in this as well, whether it's in conjunction with the state police or in whether they take over the case altogether. Oh yeah.
So how is Lieutenant Nazario doing?
So I speak with his attorneys on his team of attorneys on a daily basis. I spoke with the attorney today. I often ask how he's doing. My understanding is he's holding up. He woke up one morning and was in the national, if not international, spotlight. And so I think he's doing as best as he can with it. I think some of his close. I did not know Lieutenant Nazario personally, but through his attorneys. Everything we're doing on our end, we speak to his attorneys. His attorneys run everything through him, and they say you're doing a good job. So every day we try to get some type of statement from his attorney, email, a text message, or call between me and his lead attorney, and they often say keep up the good work. Y'all keep going. Y'all keep doing good. I've ran it past Nazario, and he's appreciative of everything. So I think he's appreciative of all the support he's got around the world. I think I read somewhere where originally they thought when it first came out they were going to get a lot of trolls, it was going to be a lot of this and that, but he's really received a lot of support from around the world.
Oh, and that's excellent. Now, as far as like with Windsor, I do agree that they need to have other branches come in. Right. Because of the simple fact Windsor is small. For those who don't know, Windsor is really small. So, of course, pretty much everyone that works for the county or that little area, they pretty much all probably already know each other or they're friends, relatives, or whatever. So, of course, it's to be expected that they're going to look out for each other.
Correct. And another thing is, our state attorney general, Mark Caron, has, and through his civil rights office, has opened up what they call a patterns and practice investigation. And they're looking back 10 years of Windsor records of whether or not there has been this racial implicit bias when it came down to their stops, their traffic violations over the last 10 years. And they're looking into that to see if there's this data showing that there's this racial implicit bias.
I think he will find it.
Yes.
Yeah,
The police chief said he welcomed the investigation because they won't find nothing in his department. Now you tell me what leader would say they ran a company for 10 years and would be no mistakes. That's what he said on national TV. I'm just a messenger, y'all. That's all I am. That's all I am. Okay? That's all I am.
That police chief is something.
Yeah, he's the police chief is making a fool out of himself, which is actually good because it's really shining light on the situation even more, letting you know that it is some issues there because, like you said, what CEO wouldn't have issues? But my question is, being that he was stopped in December and it came to light why wasn't in April? What was the purpose of him filing $1 million suit?
Right. So he. My understanding is when it initiated, he reached out to whomever he knows, and they directed him to an attorney. If you know anything about these lawsuits, they take time. Yeah. So you reach out to your attorney, and your attorney begins all the investigative work. You can't speak on something until you get all of it packaged together. Remember, it was not Lieutenant Nazario and his attorneys that put the information out. I want to give credit to the news reporter from Virginia Pilot, Jane Harper, who brought all of this to light. What occurred was that she covers the courts of Virginia, and she was just in Isle of Wight County, and she said she was working on one thing, and then that kind of fell through. So she says, "Well, let me go look at the federal lawsuits." And she comes across this case and says, this is interesting. So she wrote the story, and it broke on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Okay. And I believe it was Channel 13 that managed to get the video. So they filed the lawsuit that week because it takes months to have the lawsuit, to develop the investigation and then file the lawsuit. So that's why they started working on it in December, but those things do often take some time.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why it all just came to light. But see, that the question becomes is, why didn't Windsor bring it? Windsor knew that he had an attorney. Windsor knew that this was a serious, there was some serious impropriety there, right? So why didn't they bring it to the public spotlight that we had this incident? They never brought the chief of police, the town manager never did anything. They really thought it was going to be swept underneath the rug, and they probably thought that, okay, the lawsuit would be filed and nobody would find the lawsuit trapped in all the other paperwork of all the other federal
Right,
lawsuits.
because it wasn't important to them.
Right,
They was hoping it was going to go away.
That's it. So they can continue to do it to the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
Exactly.
Have you ever been stopped in Windsor before?
You know what? I'm trying to think. I haven't been stopped at Windsor. I think I have been stopped going up Route 460. I told someone the other day, I am blessed that I have not experienced the Route 460 racial implicit bias or racism. They call it a speed trap. I call it a race trap, right? I think Virginia Pilot just did a good piece on that. It's not a speed trap. It's a race trap for many African Americans, where we know we're targeted. And here's the thing. I heard someone say the other day, we're all stopped on 460. You're right. We are all stopped on 460, but this is where the path split. When a black person stops and a white person stops, we get treated differently.
We do.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
The moment that cop comes up to the window, that's where we split down different paths. So yes, the white man and the black man may both get stopped. But when you start looking at data, it is starting to show, and people are starting to see that African Americans are getting more traffic citations when they get stopped, and treatment is a whole lot different.
But you hear a lot of people say, I ain't taking 460.
Yeah,
I hate 460. So many people say they hate 460 because of that.
Right. And I told somebody before, think about this. And this is why we want the Department of Justice to look into this. This is a road that almost connects two of the largest HBCUs in Virginia. You have, if I live in the 757 as I did, and I went up to Virginia State, I had to take 460 to get to the 804. If I live in the 804 and decide to come to Norfolk State, I got to take 460 to come to Norfolk State. So you have a road that's constantly traveled by young African Americans, their family members, their aunties, their uncles, and they have been racially targeted for decades. I have talked back to Virginia State alumni from 30 years ago that have said, when I was traveling down 460, my dad gave me that talk. Be careful, right? You know, it's don't travel down there if you have to travel down there. And she said she got so many tickets 30 years ago. Her insurance went up. Her dad said, let me give you one of those little radars to put in your car. And so so this has been going on for decades, right? For decades, with black people being targeted on that highway, and that is why our hope is that we can get the Department of Justice to come in and look at that entire highway and see if they racially targeted people.
And I'm sure they would find they probably would find a suitcase full of stuff. But in looking at the actual video, I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember someone saying something, one of the officers saying something about, they was basically telling Nazario, basically, if you can kind of wipe everything clean, if you don't say anything, then everything will just go away.
Yes, and that, to me, that is, again, of my opinion, that can come off as intimidating by cops. Because what you're trying to tell me is, if I don't get an attorney, if I don't say anything, then we're going to wipe this away. But if we find out that, some lawsuits are being held or something, then things are going to turn, and we're going to change up everything. But that's the way they can come off.
And that's the way they probably wanted to come off.
Right, that's the way they wanted to come off. And clearly, to your, I think, viewer that just asked that question, it came off to them. Because that's why he or she asked that question. Because it can come off that way. Yep.
And that's how they intended it. That's why they didn't say anything about it. Yeah. So with you staying in Windsor, being from Windsor, and going that way, are you scared? And then by you being so active,
so I don't travel it as much unless I'm going up to Richmond, because I don't necessarily stay in Windsor. I try to stay away from 460. Sometimes if I'm in the Norfolk area, I just go the other route. But I do take 460. I will say. The only thing you should fear, FDR said, the only thing we should fear is fear itself, right? Everything I do, I step out on faith. And I believe that I'm doing what's right. So as long as I have God on my side, I'm cautious. And I understand that we're going up against an old machine. And when you're going up against an old machine and they feel like they're being taken down, I understand that you have to be very cautious. But I also understand I got God on my side.
Right.
And I take him everywhere I go. and no man can stop God. God's soldiers from doing what they need to do. So.
That's absolutely you said a mouthful there. But this is one of my other issues. When the officers are fired, a lot of times they just go from one department to the next.
Yes.
That's the sad
Officer,
part.
we're looking into that. Officer Gutierrez, and again, you all, I may be pronouncing his name wrong, so please excuse me from that. So I think I'm well versed on everything else, so y'all don't harm me for pronouncing his name wrong. But yes, he has been. He was moved around. I believe Smithfield County Police, Isle of Wight County Sheriff's Department, and Windsor Police. I believe there was a law passed this past General Assembly that, or either they're working on it, establishing a registry that that now when they leave, there's the statewide registry that their information will go into that shows that they've been here. So that is something that the General Assembly, underneath Democratic control right now, Virginia is fully blue, y'all. We are Southern state that just passed marijuana laws underneath the Democrats. So our work was not in vain, and I feel good knowing I campaigned for a lot of those Democrats, and their work they came through for us, for many of us. Okay, so right now Virginia is, and we have a Democratic governor, we have a Democratic lieutenant governor, a Democratic attorney general, and the state legislature, the both House of Delegates and the state Senate is Democrat. I say all of that because guess what? They just passed a lot of criminal justice reform bills. Guess what? Going forward, as of March 1st, police cannot stop us for the tent.
That's right.
The little license plate situations, the rims, the loud music, the exhaust pipes. There is so now, like, I think there's a period. So if it's like a little sticker and it's off by 5 or 10 days, your registration sticker, they can't stop you for that. I think it has to be like a 30-day period before they stop you. So the General Assembly in Richmond realized that this has targeted African Americans. The air fresheners hanging in our windows and things like that. So they passed a lot of these bills that are going forward. So yes. I believe, to answer that person's question, part of that ominous package of bills for criminal justice reform was the registry, meaning that after an individual gets terminated, there will be a registry that the next people can go into and see what they really do.
Right, and you would think that they would
That's
already
good.
You would think so.
had that in place.
Well, it always takes time for actually something. But one of the questions was, doing what you actually do as a political activist, as far as Nazario's case, did they ask you to come on, or was it something that you kind of like slid into? How did that work?
So the local NAACP reached out. Valerie Butler, who's the the president there, she reached out, and I started advising her just to get her through this period. It was not the first time I had kind of dealt with something on the national side or the statewide media, and it was the town of Windsor. They were not accustomed to this. The NAACP there, she does a lot of work in the community, but it's a lot of community-based work because they don't really have to deal with these. Well, we know those issues are happening, but it's one of those things where the African American community is so accustomed to it in Windsor. How often do we speak up? Now, on a daily basis, we are getting emails and calls saying this occurred in Isle of Wight County. This occurred in
So now
Windsor.
people coming forward with their information, their situation.
Before I walked in, and I just looked on my watch, she just messaged me somebody else's situation. So they're coming in constantly saying, my son dealt with it,
Oh, wow.
my nephew dealt with it, my niece has dealt with it. What can we do? What can we do to help and get this police chief?
That chief gonna end up leaving because too many people gonna come forward with stuff.
The mayor and the town manager keep saying, well, we want to make progress. You can't make progress with the same people in there that caused the problem.
That's right. Get them out of there.
You cannot tell me,
happen.
you cannot sit here and look at, 6 or 7 black people in there, and you stare at us in the face saying, I want to make progress, I want to work with you all, and then you say, but I'm not going to fire the police chief, and I'm not going to fire the Officer Crocker. Now, I've just laid it out, I believe, in layman's terms for everyone to see why the chief of police and Officer Crocker should be gone. I believe so. Right? And I think that's something y'all can go back out here and articulate and be like, look, that police chief needs to go.
Right.
But they don't see that.
No, they see it. You got to remember, they know what's wrong. They don't care, and they don't want to see it. That's the difference right there.
Right.
That's the difference.
That's a big difference. But like you said, just keep putting the heat on the town to actually get rid of him. But do you think it would have been different had it been African Americans in uniform?
So
And that would have happened
to
to
if it would have been an African American cop.
Right?
Well, you know what someone told me the other day? Someone said, I believe Officer Gutierrez is a minority. They said it's funny how the minority. It was a minority and a young white guy, and I can't speak on this, but he said it's funny how both cops were in the wrong, but the minority cop was gone first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's like Hispanic in some.
Yes,
sort
he
of,
is.
Yeah. So that is quite interesting, right?
That is.
So yes, it has been brought to. I asked the mayor. I looked at the mayor's face and looked at the town manager's face yesterday, and I said, "What if it was your son or daughter? What if it was a white person in military uniform?" In which there were black officers with guns drawn. How would you feel? They didn't give me answers again. They just looked at me like a deer. They couldn't give me answers. Yeah, they couldn't give me the answers.
They can't even imagine it. That's
Right. They can't imagine it because they've never been through it.
Right.
They've never been through it, and then it makes you wonder: do they have even friends that have been through it? Because sometimes at one point in the meeting yesterday, it was really just one of those things where I really felt like they were and I've dealt with a lot of different people, and I've been blessed to have a lot of opportunities to go into various meetings. But I just found it so interesting coming out of that meeting yesterday. I said at the opening remarks at the press conference after we left out the meeting, I said I think I told somebody it was an interesting meeting, and I was a little saddened because the day before we all celebrated not the iniquities or what happened to Derek Chauvin. We celebrated because we thought we received a little bit of justice, right? Because we whatever. I ain't rejoicing for nobody going to jail or whatever, but I am celebrating that we've received some justice. Here's the thing: I told him this. I said, Attorney General of Minnesota Keith Ellison said it the best. He says, "I cannot say today that this was justice, but I can say that we moved a little bit closer because of accountability."
Exactly.
That's what I said at the start of the press conference yesterday. I said, so we went into this meeting today asking for accountability, and we got nothing. None of them took accountability for their actions. None of them took accountability for their actions. Instead, they gave us buts and ands and different excuses on why it occurred. All we want was accountability. That's all we asked for.
Take that. But I just want to say this as well. I haven't experienced this issue in Windsor, but I experienced it here in Suffolk. When I first got my car, I remember it was New Year's morning. I was leaving church for New Year's Eve, and one of the cops pulled me over and stopped me. She said it was for my tent, which it was within the Virginia legal tent guidelines or whatever it was. But she stopped me, and when I put my window down, she actually came to the window. It was her, and then I guess she must have called back up because a guy came up. But when I put my window down, she got to the car. She said, "Oh." And then she started looking in the car like she was looking for someone else. And then she said, "Is this your car?" And I said, "Yes, it's my car. What's the problem?" And then she's like, "Oh, okay, well, what do you do?" And mind you, she's looking in the car. No one was in the car but me. But she wanted to know, "Is this your car?" But she said it was tent when I first put the window down. Then she goes, "Oh, well, it was your tent." But then the other officer walked on the other side, like just to make sure I really was. And I was like, well, I took
what
it
do you
here.
do has nothing to do with
Right.
stop.
And my tent.
Yeah.
But I don't think she was expecting, I was thinking that she wasn't
female.
expecting a female
Right.
to put the window down. She probably thought a guy was going to put the
And that's who
window
they were
down.
targeting.
Right.
They were
Because
a black man is going to be targeted at a higher, greater, leading to higher chances of being targeted than of any other race.
right, because they actually ran my text and she saw it was registered to me. And then she said, "Oh, well, just see if you can take care of that tent." And they left.
Because I think if it was a woman that got stopped in Windsor, I mean, women have certain advantages, like their smile, their energy, and everything is different. A black woman talking to a white man in Windsor is totally different. Like, you'll be surprised how attracted they are to us as black women. Seriously,
Right.
like
Don't
some
get me
people
wrong.
really do.
Some black women have been targeted out there.
Yeah.
But you're right.
They do.
Yeah.
And I've been stopped in Windsor, but just staying calm and cooperating with them, it takes you a long way.
Right.
And
Sometimes.
I'm a very nasty person, So I don't like being stopped, because the first thing I'm gonna say is what happened before you can even ask me for my license and registration. I want to know Why are you even stopping?
And that's what Lieutenant Nazario was asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Yeah. So where do we go from here though?
Right. So yesterday, one of the key thing is first the police chief. We have to put pressure on the town of Windsor by calling the city council members and the mayor and the town manager to fire the police chief and fire Officer Crocker, because we can't move forward with them there, right?
That's right.
And then from there, we have first of all, we've said we're going to wait to see what the Attorney General produces on this 10 years of looking at records. And then we're going to see what the investigation holds. But the next thing is we told them that we want a citizens review board in Windsor, and what that is, that's a board that when these type of disputes happen between police and the citizens, and there's complaints filed, that citizens review the complaints, and they have subpoena power, and they recommend what should happen to the officers. Right now, you have police. You have that's what's going on. And of course, there's this blue wall that's protecting them. So we've asked it of the town manager as well. Also, hiring of an African American officer as well. But I think a real good place to start at from the town is, of course, firing the police chief and Officer Crocker, and then that citizens review board as well. Because then, when an incident happens like this in December, it's not them, it's me, you, and whomever else is that's sitting on that board.
Right.
With a more impartial mindset, saying let's look into this case.
Okay.
Yep. But where we go from here, everyone, we'll have some things coming up in the coming days. I'll have it on my social media platforms. Brandon Randleman on Facebook, Randleman on Facebook, and then on Instagram it's B_Randleman. Randleman. And we're gonna let everyone know that this is our campaign to push them out, because you receive justice and we receive some accountability when they say those two have done wrong.
So that's y'all goal to push out.
They have to go.
They gotta go.
They have to go. I mean, because when you come through there next, or your loved one comes through there next, you still have the chief that allowed this to happen in December running the show. So that means your loved one can still go through the same thing that Lieutenant Nazario went through.
That's right.
So you're not going to get a change with the same leadership. So
Okay, so Brandon, we always ask all of our special guests, what advice do you give Wait A Gam Minute? Like, what type of feedback would you give us as far as our podcast concerned? Like, what advice would you give us?
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing that social justice message. That is very important right now. The social justice message is very, very important right now. Keep bringing on guests like myself and others that can push that message out here. We got to make our voices heard.
That's right.
We got to make our voices. We cannot sit back quietly and idly. They want us to.
That's true.
So we have to.
That's true. Well, Brandon, we thank you
Thank you so much
for
for having
joining
me.
us tonight.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Yes, because you could have talked about this anywhere else, but you decided to talk about
thank
it.
y'all
Wait
for
A Gam
inviting me.
You told me
and
a
that's
lot.
a plus.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes, we actually learned a lot tonight, and like Ms. Go Getter and Pint said, we do thank you for coming, Brandon. We want you guys to always tune in to Wait A Gam Minute here on Facebook at 7 o'clock on Thursdays, live, as well as you can see us on YouTube. As of today, you can now hear us on Pandora, so you can listen to us on Pandora, Apple, Spotify, Google,
the
Pocket
premiere.
Podcasts. You also can see us on ebny.tv as well as Blackjack TV. So, like Brandon said, we're going to take Brandon's comments and concerns, and we're going to take them and do just what he said.
Yes,
Until
please
next
keep the
time,
social justice.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.